Phantasy Star Online, the Japanese MMO that they were looking for. They select a lot of people, as most people hadn't heard of the game, though a small chunk of older viewers may have played the first MMO, and the game possibly have played something like Phantasy Star Zero or Phantasy Star. Meanwhile, I was going absolutely feral over this announcement. Okay, you see, at this time, I had already dumped over 300 hours into the Japanese movies in PS2 as the evolution now came. I had even convinced a friend or two of mine to jump through the same games I had in order to play the game in English. But, I've not come across this yet. Why do I like it so much that I actually wore a wrapping pin at my sister's wedding? Find out all of this and more in... So this sequence of events, in totality, starts with my purchase of a Nintendo Switch back in the spring of 2017. The only real relevance this has to the rest of the story is that, by 2018, everyone in my family knew I had a Switch, whether they knew what kinds of games I played or not. Some members of my family owned up to this lack of knowledge, deciding to ask me directly what kind of games or what games specifically I would like to have. But not my mother! No. She gifted based on intuition alone. She has never asked me what I want directly, ever, I don't think. Except for when I was a real small child, and even then I'm pretty sure she ignored me, because I asked for ridiculous things. But she's always found a way to give me decent gifts for who I am, and I appreciate her for that. So really, shout out to my mom for this one, though I doubt she'll see this video. Anyway, for Christmas 2018, she gave me a Switch copy of the Sega Genesis Classics Collection. For anyone who's watched me stream Phantasy Star 2, that's what I use to play the game. It's the same collection but on Steam, and it has a different selling model. Amongst this collection for the Sega Genesis, only a handful really stood out to me. See, I'm not very good at beat-em-ups or platformers, which makes up most of the titles in the Classics collection. That really left me with the RPGs, like Shining Force and, of course, Phantasy Star, what this video is about. The collection housed games 2 through 4 of the original 4 Phantasy Star games. I, of course, started with 2 and made a good ways through that before getting kind of bored of it, and then trying 3 and 4 for a couple hours each. At this point, I was invested enough to look up what Phantasy Star 1 was. It's a Master System game, and I've yet to feel like emulating the Master System in order to play the first Phantasy Star, because I have yet to really see any other way that Sega has allowed for anyone to play that game. I'd really like it if they did. It'd be nice. Anyway, important part of this sequence is that it got me familiar with the name Phantasy Star as a franchise, and also introduced me to this sort of concept of sci-fi RPGs, because in my youth I didn't really play those. All the RPGs around me were either fantasy or Mario. Yeah, Mario, because there were the Mario Luigi games and Super Mario RPG. Anyway, that's besides the point. This was really my introduction to the idea of sci-fi RPGs. And this also would eventually fold over into my eternal desire for an MMO that I like to play for free, preferably, because I'm scared of subscription models. This would lead me on another search, which would eventually allow me to uncover the existence of PSO2 and the Archslayer, a project by which I could play the game in English. So, I started making an account for the Japanese version of the game and got to play in it. Not gonna go through all the loopholes I had to do, that's a whole other YouTube video. Other people have made it. If you're interested, go look it up. It's not really necessary anymore. I fell in love with the game almost instantly. Keep in mind, everything I'm about to say is about base PSO2, not New Genesis. Oh, we'll get to that later. The vibes of the Ark ship and all the areas were delightful. The English-speaking communities on the Japanese server were awesome and more than helpful. Almost too much information available at the time. Kinda crazy. And the gameplay loop scratched a wonderful itch in my brain. The gameplay loop of PSO2 is a lightning-quick hit of the good brain chemicals, as you go from grabbing your daily quests and irrelevant side missions, entering the zone for the daily quests, completing the daily objectives, when fight the boss for the area, profit. All of that happens so quickly and so wonderfully, and it's really the daily loop of main things, and it's what I did the most often, aside from the story. And it's all fun because combat in PSO2 is really fun. There's so much more to this game, and I enjoyed all of my time playing it, all 300 hours. Actually, more like 500 hours when I add in the US version, but it's a lot of hours. So, consider this following part something of a review of PSO2, the base game. I'll talk about NGS afterward. When I started PSO2, I was using a mostly translated version of the game. All the important gameplay information was translated, but things like fluff dialogue and certain item descriptions were not. What was translated, though, was the story. At the point in time that I joined the game, Episode 4, aka Episode Earth, was the default starting point for new players. Since the story system had been revamped for it, and it was a bit more immediately exciting compared to Episode 1. In large parts of the community, Episode 4 is seen as a black sheep, and a lot of people call it their least favorite episode, but since it was the first one I experienced, I got to get the story without any expectations of what came before or after it, and I absolutely adored it. Even now, having finished Episode 1 and 5, all twice, Episode 4 remains my second favorite. I don't want to get into specific spoilers at the moment, but the coming-of-age type story that uses PSO2, the game, as a framing device within the story is really cool, and it has a lot of emotions that I really liked, and they came at a really good time for me in my life. Anyway, after finishing Episode 4, I went into Episode 5 for a while to get the hero class, and I was confused because Episode 5 relies a lot on Episodes 1, 2, and 3. But going back, I was not prepared for the slug that is Episode 1. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the story, and the lore, and beating up Genomholt. That was nice, but it takes a while. It takes forever for things to happen in Episode 1. All of the scenes are just these itty-bitty little bites because of the Matterboard system that was how you got the story at the beginning of the game. However, I did get through it, and side note, if you're someone who's thinking about playing the story of base PSO2 right now, I still suggest playing Episode Oracle before Episodes 5 and 6. You don't have to, technically, but they both rely a lot on referencing events and characters and relationships from Episode Oracle, so it's really important. I mean, if you're someone who's cool with not having that kind of context, great for you, go right ahead. But it's pretty important if you want the full context. Now, I, like many, really enjoyed the characters I met during Episode Oracle in a variety of ways, like how I feel sorry for Afi after everything this game does to him, or how much I like punching Genomholt, which brings me to the next part I want to highlight about this game. In fiction, there are many routes to take with your big baddies. You could make them a distant, looming threat that the protagonist doesn't have a real personal connection to. You could make them a dramatic, reasonable, ideological foil to the protagonist. You could just make them violent and hot, and there's all sorts of possibilities. Phantasy Star Online 2 creates villains that you really enjoy beating the shit out of for their crap ideology. Also, they might be kinda hot, I don't know, beats me. Needless to say, I'm gonna start spoiling the story from here on. This is your warning. This starts at Retem, who I mentioned earlier. From the get-go, he's an annoying, needlessly violent man who really wants to fight you, and Xeno to a lesser degree. Beyond this, he's also an asshat to the one woman who stays around him out of guilt of some sort. This results in him getting possessed by Darkfall's Elder. Quick tangent on how it slides into the Phantasy Star as a whole. Darkfalls almost always starts doing shit by possessing someone who's unprepared for its presence. This happens with every Falls in PSO2 and every Falls before. The current sole exception is NGS, and that's not important. Every single step of episode 1, I wanted to plant my fist into his nose. It made me so upset, because it's exactly what he wants. And I know that's what he wants. But this made beating up Elder an emotionally cathartic experience, which is great. Because otherwise, the Elder emergency quest, I'm not calling them emergency quests, is really boring. Is really boring as a fight. As an emergency quest, it's kind of boring. Next big punchable dude is Luther, and he manages this twice. When he first shows up ranting and raving about Shion, he seems a bit off-kilter, not unlike certain other arcs with some guns. But then you learn about the Photoners, and how Luther has committed so many war crimes. And then he's Darkfall's loser, which I will call him, because that's what he deserves to be called, a loser. My third and final bullet point for punchable villains is the final boss. Yes, there are other villains along the way that are also punchable, but I didn't care too much for episode 5's big weirdo, and Mother was just lonely, and so were her followers. Anyway, fuck Shiva! Wait. No, not like that. I really liked to hate Shiva. She was so pompous that it made me deeply upset that she was able to succeed as long as she was. She's also the villain that pulls the join me trope during the story, which solidifies her attitude and just how much she believes her whole idea. That she genuinely believes that the two people who came to kill her personally would join her because, oh, I can betray you the way they did me. The player character and Persona the Mask just effectively say, so what? Future's gonna happen, so you gotta die. Boom. And that and everything else that made up the ending to base PSO2 was so beautiful. I loved that ending. And it really had me hyped for the new beginning coming out with NGS. So, at launch, I had a number of things that made me disappointed in NGS. For one, there really wasn't much to do besides fight. I haven't talked about it to this point, but base PSO2 had a lot of distractions, side events, and what have you. They really gave the gameplay a good shake. These range from the casino to suddenly having to disarm bombs mid-mission, the PvP, which wasn't really good, but it was there. PSO2 was a varied game from moment to moment, and it did all of this with style and energy, so even when it missed, it still felt like they meant to do that. And then, with the launch of NGS, I thought what I missed was just that energetic and goofy voice of the emergency trial announcer. But what I really missed was the excitement of gameplay that it meant. In NGS, at launch, there were really only a few different trials in the combat sectors that can be summed up as, kill these enemies, kill this boss, kill these enemies or this boss, but the weather is bad. Kill these enemies while a transport kind of sits in the way. There truly wasn't much going on in the moment-to-moment gameplay, although maybe that was secretly a boon for the game at launch. If you have no idea what I mean, here's hoping I can find some footage of what I've referred to as the damage take issue. This issue, along with other issues relating to the function of the game at all, like standard server connection issues that most MMOs experience at launch, the moment I hit level 20 and finished the story, I was out of there. I stopped playing the game. I was really tired of fighting with the game I wanted to play. However, I never uninstalled the game, and eventually I did come back to it. After an inordinate amount of time, New Genesis fixed a high number of the issues that plagued its launch. For instance, enemies were getting hurt when you hit them, which is nice for an action game. So I went back to the game. How did I find it? It was fine. It was a good action game. The cocoons were kind of interesting sometimes, but there was nothing that really grabbed me. So I took my time finishing the story of Retem, and I stopped playing again. Still didn't feel like there was much I wanted to do. This might make you wonder what I did when Kavaris released. The truth is, I was kind of bummed about NGS not being base game, that I didn't really take any interest in it. I played a little bit, but I mostly just sat on my desktop when I went and played other games. The key other game, ironically, was Final Fantasy XIV, you know, critically acclaimed MMO entry in the Final Fantasy franchise, which means its presence as a singular game dwarfs the presence of Phantasy Star as a franchise, at least in the West. Yeah, that game. I played that game for a few months and I deeply enjoyed it. However, I came upon some times kind of recently where I didn't have the money to pay for a sub fee. So when that old MMO itch came again, needing a good scratch, I considered my options. I had, at the time, either installed on my PC within a day of being installed, Elder Scrolls Online, an MMO that made my wrists hurt without fail, Elsword, a Korean MMO that I haven't played in over a year and hasn't captivated me in any real way for a long time, PSO Blue Burst running on some private servers, and then NGS. So what made me choose NGS? Honestly, a TikTok. I saw someone posting some things that looked like fun in NGS in the new regions, Stia, and I decided to return to my journey. And honestly, I'm really glad I did. I love the things that happen in Kavaris and Stia, and Chapter 5 has me really excited for what's about to happen next. However, I still have some complaints. Okay. Most of my complaints are from a story perspective. I want to have hateable villains again. Zephetto was pretty good, but there were like 3 scenes with him before he did a good guy moment and went to fight the Starless up at the sky. Yeah. I want characters like Gedemhold, or Luther, or Shiva, where we get plenty of time to soak in just how much we do not like these people, or what they are, and I just want to see them fall, you know? It's nice. I'm hoping there's someone like that behind the Starless, but I guess I'll just have to wait and see. In addition to that, I want an equally lovable cast of allies. As it stands, we haven't really done too much interacting with our allies at the moment, with the characters on Alpha. On the ways base PSO2 allowed you to experience, one of the ways base PSO2 allowed you to experience the characters was the partner cards, where you could get the cards of various characters and cast members from the story to join you, with a full suite of auto chats that really brought the characters to life. It really seems like this aspect of the game has been expanding recently, with the sub-episodes and the AI partners who show up if you enter into a battle area alone, which is nice. And also Central, the webcomic, really expands on a lot of the characters. I just want to see more of them in game. I feel like the cutscene framework you guys have works really well. Although I know on all of the content is voice acted, and because you have 2 different dubs going on, it could be a little pricey to add more voice acting. So one suggestion I have is text logs by the characters, or like diaries that could have like updates as you go through, and you can just go like snooping into characters' diaries. I think that would be kind of neat. There are some other games that have done that. I think it would be cool. I don't know. I'm sure you guys have your own plans. I don't really expect anyone from Phantasy Star Crew to see this anyway. All in all, I've had a wonderful time with Phantasy Star as a franchise. I'm still incredibly excited to see what they do with it in the future. If you can't tell that my biggest complaint about the game in this video, in its current state, is that I want more. I want more things. I just want more things. Then I think you've got a decent game on your hands here. If anyone from Sega or Phantasy Star Group does see this, thank you. Thank you a lot for making this game. I look forward to the Creative Space update that hopefully this video comes out before. We'll see, cutting it a little close as of recording. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I am the Timeline Man, or Marcus Future. If you're new here, I usually make Let's Play videos, so if this one does well, there'll probably be more of these. I do currently have one more Phantasy Star related video essay type content that I want to make, but beyond that, I'm just gonna play it by ear. You want to find out what comes next, then hit that subscribe-a-dooble, the red one. If you like Phantasy Star specifically, I've been doing a walkthrough, playthrough type deal of Phantasy Star 2 on this channel. It's pretty neat. Well, whatever happens, stay safe out there.